Hello, I'm Basil Valentine, and this is Unprecedented TV, unfiltered, uncensored, unprecedented, the home of free speech here on the internet. Do please like and subscribe over at YouTube. Follow us on X, and remember, I'm on air every day, Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. for Ascending Order, your daily news edit, with live guests and all the genuinely most important stories from around the world. Don't allow yourself to be propagandized by the corporate media. Forget the world at one on Radio 4. Join me, Basil Valentine, instead, 1 p.m. on X, Monday to Friday, also on YouTube. And I'll see you all very soon. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Well, an exciting time to be alive. What a great time of year as well. Lots of exciting things happening, especially if you're a sports fan. Football season's well underway. The Dewhurst Stakes Group 1, the championship race for 2-year-olds at Newmarket on Saturday, as well as the Cesarewitch Handicap. Oh, I would love to be able to focus on those things alone, on creativity, on joy, on all the things that make life worth living. But unfortunately, the world is in an absolutely terrible mess. Our morality, our society are being upended by bad faith actors, both here and abroad. So we must do all we can to keep the flame of truth, of freedom, of liberty, of universal human rights, and of course, peace. That's what I stand for. That's what I promote here on Unprecedented TV. What could possibly be controversial about that? But it seems those are controversial things. Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom to protest against our own government is coming under threat. I'll be discussing the current state of the UK with legendary investigative journalist Tony Gosling at the half hour. Tony, formerly, of course, of the BBC, now does his own independent station down there in Bristol, and he is undoubtedly one of the most astute observers of the UK political scene and how it affects our society, because affect our society it does. We've now got a situation where a government elected by 1 in 7 adults, roughly, if you include people not on the electoral roll, 33% of those who voted, which is a third, but then the turnout was only just over half, which makes it a sixth. And then if you add in people not on the electoral roll, it's more like 1 in 7 people actually voted Labour. But they think they can bring in all kinds of sweeping new authoritarian powers, like the right to protest. We've got this dreadful turncoat now as Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, making all sorts of bizarre statements about how the right to protest isn't enshrined in law and you don't need to exercise it every day. Not that the Tories are any better, of course. Their talking shop goes on up in Birmingham. Robert Kendrick making what's been described as a leaders or prospective leaders speech. I have barely concealed contempt for most of these people, indeed for the entire political class that we have in Britain at the moment. They are an entirely self-serving bunch of narcissists. Very few of them have ever had jobs outside being political researchers and party apparatchiks of one sort or another. Long gone are the days when people had decades of experience in industry, the law, the teaching profession, medicine, or anything like that. before going into Parliament. Now, it's a simple greasy pole that you have to climb, basically taking part in the groupthink always, regardless of whether or not that suits your values. So the simple answer is don't have any values, and then you can be sure to climb the greasy pole, whether it's in the Labour Party or the Conservative Party. Now, we've heard a lot about your party. Jeremy Corbyn has apparently been nominated the leader already, although it's not due to hold its annual conference until November. But one party that has been making some considerable headway in recent days, because, of course, people are really rather fed up with being presented with authoritarianism with a neoliberal twinge by the Labour Party, and authoritarianism with a neocon twinge by the Conservative Party, which is why they are, of course, flocking to reform. It's quite unprecedented in my lifetime, anyway, that we are seeing the end of the two-party system. It's going to take some cracking because, of course, we have this ludicrously anachronistic first-past-the-post voting system whereby a party can get 10 or even 20% of the votes and still not be represented in Parliament. It's truly bizarre, and it's got to go. But we're lumbered with it for the time being. And turkeys don't tend to vote for Christmas. So it's unlikely that the present Labour government, although the Labour Party has made noises about proportional representation in the past, it's unlikely they're going to do anything about it in this Parliament. They're far more likely to want to bring in those wretched digital ID cards, although opposition to them is growing. And I'll be talking about that as well with Tony in the second half of the programme. But the party that's been gaining about 1,000 members per day over the last couple of weeks, while your party fight amongst themselves and decide what indeed they're going to be called, is, of course, the Green Party, newly emboldened by its revolutionary leader, Zach Polansky. Well, Owen Jones, who, of course, was kicked out of the Labour Party conference last week for asking too many awkward questions of those assorted popinjays and quadgers. He's been to the Green Party conference, and a spirit of optimism and renewal reigns supreme, as we can hear from Owen now in this report.
How terrified should Keir Starmer be? Now, the Green Party are having a bit of a moment. I'm here at their conference in Bournemouth. They've got this new leader, Zach Polansky. I think it's fair to say he's cutting through. He's making waves. He's got a bit of a phenomenon attached to him. Now, this is definitely a party that feels that the wind is blowing in their direction. It's all been about reform, hasn't it? Nigel Farage, he's been presented as the kind of anti-establishment insurgent force. I don't think that's based in reality, but the Greens have struggled to kind of have that same cut through it, anything like it. It doesn't help with the media, it doesn't give you the same attention or anything like it. Is that going to change? Now, I'm here to speak to the new leader, I'm here to speak to activists, and I want to find out, is the Green Party now going to start replacing the Labour Party as the progressive party in Britain?
I left the Labour Party last year.
I can't support a party that no longer represents the values that were important to me and my family.
I became politically homeless, and now I found a home.
We are moving into a multi-party system, and people are realising that you don't have to choose between bad and worse.
This country voted in a party with a massive majority and a mandate for change. And all we've seen, I see a lot of the time, is them kowtowing to the far right. And this causes me enormous, concern, because aside from being a student of natural history, I'm a student of history, and I know what happened in the middle of the last century.
It wasn't great.
It wasn't great, was it? And there are clear parallels between some of the processes that were undertaken by political parties and their manoeuvring at that point that I'm seeing now. And that, without ambiguity, is a fact. The playbook is very similar. And therefore, look, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, but I'm frightened, and I get more scared every single day.
The level of distrust and disgust in the population is like nothing I've really ever seen before, which is actually really dangerous and really scary. And so I think it's so important that there is a voice out there that's offering some hope and some solutions and isn't afraid to say what it thinks. And that's, whatever you say about Zach, he's not afraid to say what he thinks. And that's great right now, because the image people have of politicians is that they mould their language to whatever they think you want them to say. And I think there's just an appetite now for authentic politics, and that's what the Green Party is about. So I think this is here to stay, I reckon.
I've got my issues with Caroline Lucas. She joined the pile-on on Professor David Miller when he was so erroneously, so disgracefully accused of anti-Semitism at Bristol University and subsequently dismissed. Of course, he won that case, I'm pleased to say. Haven't seen a retraction or apology from Caroline Lucas. The Greens are also, of course, wedded to the whole net zero climate change nonsense, even at the expense of putting solar panels all over the green fields of England. And I'm not sure what their view on the United Kingdom's borders are, whether or not we're supposed to have any borders or not. But nevertheless, in the midst of a genocide and in the midst of the creeping authoritarianism we see from particularly the Labour Party, who I've always been extremely suspicious about their motives, it is at least refreshing to see some plurality of opinion, because we have at the moment a very narrow opinion corridor represented in Westminster. Basically, 90% of them are pro-genocide, are Zionists. I would imagine that with its huge majority, the digital ID will, when presented before Parliament, before the House of Commons, get passed. Remains to be seen whether we can organise enough pushback against that. So we do need greater plurality of opinion on show, particularly in the House of Commons. Now, the reason why the Green Party are suddenly so resurgent is largely down to the new leader, Zach Polansky. He was elected just a few weeks ago. Zach is Jewish. He's from Manchester, but that didn't mean that he got invited on Laura Kuenssberg's flagship politics program at the weekend, even though every other party leader with representation in Parliament was invited during the conference for a lengthy interview. I wonder why. Well, the Green Party have been putting out a public information film, a political broadcast, which features Zach heavily. So given that you won't hear him on the BBC, let's hear from him here instead.
I grew up in the north, not far from here. I remember I used to wake up with this hopeful feeling, not like I was in a cornflakes advert or anything, but there was something in the air back then, a kind of ordinary hope. I've spent the last 5 years up and down the country, listening to people on streets like this. I'm not sure we feel like that anymore. There's more a hopelessness. People who are too tired to fight, too tired to sleep, kids going to bed hungry, parents lying awake in the next room knowing, powerless to change things. And people say to me, "Hey Zach, you're the leader of a political party, what are you lot going to do about this?" And I say, we need a fair taxation system. We need to tax the people with the broadest shoulders in a fair way. But they cut me off. Hey, I'm a plumber. I've been working 30 years. I'm finally doing okay. Why are you making me the problem? Or a hairdresser. I've just opened my first hair salon. Why are you taxing me? Why are you taxing my ambition? And I wondered, why did they think I was talking about them? And now I get it. It's because it's too hard to picture. You see, there are some people in this country, when they go to sleep at night, they lay their heads on the pillows, just like us. They lie in the same darkness we do. But when they sleep, something happens. It's like the economy does a little dance for them. And when they wake up, without working a third job or doing an extra shift, they are richer, much richer. In one night's sleep, They make more than the plumber and the hairdresser could earn in an entire year. More than this whole street earns in an entire year. More than this whole beautiful neighborhood could earn in an entire year. In one night's sleep without lifting a finger. That's why it's so difficult to imagine. It's obscene. That's why we need a wealth tax. Not on plumbers, not on small businesses, not on ambition. Just a 1% tax on the assets of the super rich will help reduce inequality, give us warmer homes, an NHS that works, free and universal childcare, and air our kids can breathe. And by the way, if anyone tries to say to you, won't the super rich just leave? A more equal society? It's good for them too. Since the pandemic began, billionaire wealth in this country has doubled. Meanwhile, millions use food banks and warm banks as a lifeline. Some politicians seem confused. Do they serve the billionaires or do they serve you? I'm not confused. Ordinary people can't wait any longer. I'm here to make this call, but I can't do it alone. Will you stand with me? Let's bring back that feeling and make hope normal again.
There he goes. Well, Zach does make a very good point. The social contract, which served Britain so well for decades after the Second World War, the so-called Butskillite consensus, for those who didn't do economics or politics to A-level, the Butskillite consensus was the Hugh Gateskill, Rab Butler, who were both leaders of their respective parties. Rab wasn't actually the leader of the Conservative Party he ever went, but that's another story. That you had a decent welfare state to support the those that could not look after themselves, and certain industries were better off in public ownership. For example, the railways, electricity, water. The Conservatives did not attempt to denationalise those until the iconoclast Thatcher came along, and that you had a fair tax system where the wealthier were taxed. Now, that's all disappeared out the window. It's been replaced by what is now 4.5 decades of neoliberalism, where the rich have got richer and richer and the poor have got poorer and poorer. The system is increasingly broken. There is increasing despair and hopelessness. There are a lot of people with what is called SHIT life syndrome, working long hours, often doing multiple jobs, with no prospect ever of owning their own home, and with luxuries few and far between. Meanwhile, the disparity in wealth between rich and poor is now wider than it was even in Dickensian times. So we do certainly need some kind of departure, a major departure from the neoliberal consensus that has served Britain so badly since that dreadful day in May 1979, when that awful petty bourgeois woman, Margaret Thatcher, came to power. Anyway, as you can tell, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of the Labour Party either. Here's, I mean, if you need any reminding why, here are a few vox pops from the conference last week. Young Labour activists and enthusiasts were asked about Tony Blair taking over Gaza, and this is what they had to say.
I think it's a brilliant idea.
I think that Tony Blair is a very experienced politician. Obviously, he's done a lot of work in the past with the Middle East, and he's always been very committed to that issue.
I think his experience in international politics gives me hope. The Good Friday Agreement was a wonderful, wonderful piece of legislation, brought peace to Northern Ireland, ended the Troubles, and if you can do that then, if we can do that then, we can do that now as a party.
I think he has a lot of experience in Middle East politics. I think he's also an experienced statesman. He's obviously advising statespeople around the world through the TBI. And I think he is actually a good person for this, because whilst Trump's the chair of the board, I think it's a 22-person board, I think that Tony Blair's an experienced figure who can definitely rebuild Gaza.
The naivety of these people, wet behind the ears, doesn't begin to cover it. Most of them look as if they weren't born when Blair launched the illegal invasion of Iraq that resulted in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of innocent people. He belongs in The Hague. When they say he's had a lot of experience in the Middle East, it's been mostly cozying up to the demonic, homicidal psychopath Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, a lot of people have been saying that he needs yet another war to save his own skin, with the genocide in Gaza possibly coming to an end in the near future. So what's he doing? He's raising the spectre of Iran, attacking not Israel this time, but believe it or not, the United States. And he seriously expects people to believe him.
Iran is developing now ballistic missiles that are intercontinental ballistic missiles for 8,000 kilometer range. What does that mean? They add another 3,000 kilometers, and they've got under their atomic guns, New York City in target, Washington, Boston, Miami, Mar-a-Lago. Okay? So that is a very great danger. You don't want to be under the nuclear gun of these people who are not necessarily rational and who chant death to America.
My apologies for putting that repulsive individual on screen, but the ludicrousness of his assertions needs pointing out, frankly. Are Americans stupid enough to believe him? Well, they believed we were told, indeed, that Saddam Hussein was going to attack London in 45 minutes. So perhaps people are stupid enough to believe him. Meanwhile, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, which he has engineered, a mass murderer that he is, continues to get worse. We're going to take a portion now of the latest report from Al Jazeera from the beleaguered Gaza Strip.
Going to go back to our top story now, the war on Gaza. And Shayna Lowe joins us. She is a communication advisor for Palestine at the Norwegian Refugee Council. She is in Amman. Thanks very much for being with us. 2 years on, how would you describe the situation in Gaza right now? 67,000 killed, most of them women and children. We've seen famine, starvation, millions displaced. I mean, the scale of what has happened can't be overstated, can it?
No, it can't. It's truly remarkable thinking about all that has happened over the last 2 years and seeing that the situation has just continued to deteriorate over time. Each time we think we've reached a new low, we find that actually we haven't, and that things will simply continue to get worse. It's why we've been desperately calling for a ceasefire for 2 years. It's why we've been desperately calling for the scaling up of humanitarian aid and assistance. It's what we have witnessed over the last 2 years and what our staff and their families and the communities they serve have endured is simply unconscionable. That this has been live streamed for the entire world to see, and yet not enough has been done to put an end to the killing and destruction.
We were talking to our correspondent Tarek in Gaza a little earlier in the programme, and he described it as the systematic collapse of an entire society. Is that's effectively what has happened in the last 2 years, isn't it?
Absolutely. We've seen the destruction of critical infrastructure, schools, hospitals, roadways, water networks. We've seen mass killings, tens of thousands of people killed, many thousands buried under the rubble. We have seen all efforts or nearly all efforts to bring in aid be obstructed, restricted, and have faced insurmountable challenges in trying to address the grave humanitarian needs that continue to grow each and every day. We continue to face obstructions. The NRC has over 200 trucks worth of aid waiting to get into Gaza, but cannot get approvals. We are seeing efforts being made to really make it impossible for aid agencies to operate and basically to strangle all aspects of life inside of Gaza.
And like you say, things have only gotten worse in that time, and especially since the Israeli military has tried to seize Gaza City. I know the NRC has said that has displaced over 10,000 Palestinians every day in just the last couple of weeks. Can you just give us an idea of what effect that has on your ability to get what little aid you can get into Gaza to those who most need it now?
Well, in Gaza City, we remain one of the only organizations continuing to provide clean drinking water to the people that remain there. And it's incredibly difficult. Gaza City has been under a siege, essentially, without any aid entering through the north since September 12th. Just over last week, they closed the northbound route on the one road to make it to Gaza City, which means that aid agencies will face very difficult challenges in bringing food and other supplies to the civilians that remain there. For the people that have chosen to flee or been forced to flee, the conditions that await them in the south of Gaza are unimaginable. One colleague told me
it's an absolute hellscape in Gaza. The academic estimate is that 680,000 people have been slaughtered. In accordance with international law, the global humanitarian flotilla set sail loaded with aid, baby formula, nappies, medicines, and of course, all 50 boats were intercepted by the Israeli Navy in international waters, or indeed in Palestinian waters. Some of the British people are still in the Israeli dungeons. And Keir Starmer has said quite disgracefully that their incarceration is a matter for the Israeli government alone. I don't know what consular assistance they're being provided with, but one woman who got back to Manchester on Monday night said the British Embassy had done nothing to help her. Greg Stoker is a US Army veteran who was also with the flotilla, and he is discovering that you have to be, if you're anti-Zionist, then your privileges as an American are somewhat revoked. It seems that there are about 25 people still in the Israeli dungeons. I hope to speak to Ty Hickey later in the week. I don't know what's happened to my good friend Dr. Frank Romano, who I've interviewed several times on this program. I believe he may well still be in custody. So let's hear first of all from Greg.
Greg here. I'm out of Israeli detention along with one other U.S. citizen, Mo, a Marine Corps veteran. As far as the rest of the U.S. delegation, we're not really tracking what's going on. In terms of other delegates who have been released, we're not really sure either. In the prison are kind of what you'd expect from a terror gulag. Basically, no showers, food scarcity. A lot of people are on hunger strike in protest to them withholding insulin from some of our detainees. We were told there are no doctors for animals. We were told that, they're going to try to get the rest of us out in 24 to 48 hours, but there is no transparency. None of us has seen lawyers. They're not following their own rules for self-deportation. You're supposed to be out of the country in 24, 72 hours. That hasn't happened. I think the only reason I was released is because some of the pressure from my own local representatives in Texas. So we need to keep pushing and fighting to get the other people released. This is insane. And also I would remind everybody that everything that happened here is 1/10, maybe less, probably less than what Palestinians go through in extrajudicial detention in Israeli terror prisons. Only here because I had the privilege and luxury of getting shuffled on at the last second to a Slovakian charter flight arranged by that government to get me out of the country. This entire process is insane. There's a lot of bureaucratic incompetence. There seems to be a lot of political infighting between Ben-Gvir's coalition and what other more liberal Zionist elements want to see. So the entire process is absolutely confused, and they're not following their own laws.
Of course, the highest profile amongst the detainees is Greta Thunberg. It's extraordinary the way liberal institutions embraced her so readily when she was banging on about climate change. Here she is with the concrete-haired warmonger-in-chief, Ursula von der Leyen, whose position as President of the European Commission, I'm pleased to say, seems to be under threat. Abysmal creature that she is, but all smiles there with Greta. Since then, of course, Greta has gone on to become a champion of the Palestinian people. She spoke at a noisy press conference in Athens after her release yesterday.
Let me be very clear. There is a genocide going on in front of our eyes, on all our phones. Okay, let me be very clear. There is a genocide going on in front of our very eyes. A live-streamed genocide on all of our phones. No one has the privilege to say we are not aware of what's happening. No one in the future will be able to say we did not know. Under international law, states have a legal obligation to act to prevent and to stop a genocide from happening. That means ending complicity, applying real pressure, and ending arms transfers. We are not seeing that. We are not even seeing the bare minimum from our governments. Our international systems are betraying Palestinians. They are not even able to prevent the worst war crimes from happening. And I will never, ever comprehend how humans can be so evil that you would deliberately starve millions of people living trapped under an illegal siege as a continuation of decades and decades of suffocating oppression, apartheid, and occupation. What we to do with the global Sumud flotilla was to step up when our governments failed to do their legal obligation. Our governments are talking about ensuring human rights and the importance of getting humanitarian aid into Gaza, while failing to do their part and while failing to even the bare minimum ensuring safety for this mission. The global Sumud flotilla was the biggest ever attempt to break Israel's illegal and inhumane siege by sea. And it is a story of global international solidarity, of people stepping up when our governments fail to do so, of people saying that my leaders, so-called leaders who are supposed to represent me, who continue to fuel a genocide, death and destruction, they do not represent me. And this is a last resort. That this mission has to exist, it's a shame. It is a shame. And I could talk for a very, very long time about our mistreatment and abuses in our imprisonment, trust me, but that is not the story. What happened here was that Israel, while continuing to worsen and escalate their genocide and mass destruction with genocidal intent, attempting to erase an entire population, an entire nation in front of our very eyes.
There she goes, and happy memories of time with the concrete-headed Ursula von der Leyen. Now, I'm delighted to say joining me is Tony Gosling from Bristol. Tony, welcome to the programme. I don't know if, like me, you had very little time for... yeah, we can hear you fine. Just look at the camera. I had very little time for Greta when she was banging on about climate change, but she's now become a very passionate and eloquent spokesperson for universal human rights, and in particular the Palestinian people. And I particularly like the way she centered her speech there in Athens airport yesterday on their suffering, because of course the media desperate to make the story about her and, as usual, deflect attention away from the genocide itself, Tony. Can you hear me, Tony?
Well, look,
Welcome.
what she didn't mention was, yes, I can hear you fine. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely fine. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, what she didn't mention was the detention of Yvonne Ridley. She's still in jail, needing medication in Israel. Really, it's just as part of my that should help my connection. The as part of the way these things are spun out with people like Greta around, you will find that there are. She's saying great things, of course, absolutely right. But what is she not saying? On that flotilla with her, Yvonne is in her 70s now, I believe, early 70s. She was the journalist who was responsible for the Observer story back in 2003. She pushed it very hard about weapons of mass destruction being faked and about services to try to fix the vote at the UN Security Council, which eventually led to the UN Security Council not voting to support the invasion of Iraq, and led to the Iraq we can now quite happily talk about not happily, but talk about the Iraq invasion as being illegal. That's because of Yvonne Ridley. Obviously, there is also the Catherine Gunn, the whistleblower that blew the whistle from GCHQ, too, involved in that story. But she's an extremely important journalist, and the idea that she cannot speak, she's not able to say anything. And Greta, I haven't seen her mentioning her at all. She should be right at the front. So it's not the ongoing genocide. It's also this attempt to control the news. And I'm quite certain that Greta knows about Yvonne. Continued complicity of the mass media in covering up Israel's continuing crimes, literally all
Literally all the time. Yeah.
Still today, with the flotilla, people being jailed. So there are certain voices we're not able to hear.
You make a very good point. And of course, the other thing that the corporate media refuse to report on is Britain continuing to supply weapons for the genocide. I mean, the Labour Party conference last week voted overwhelmingly to say that Israel is committing genocide. Yet at the same time, the government continues to provide diplomatic cover and indeed weapons, as we can see in this report.
This comes as the government is under increasing pressure to impose a full arms embargo. This data is from Israel's tax authority, showing the value of arms imports from the UK. Now, any company in the UK wanting to sell arms abroad has to apply for a license. And in September last year, the government suspended 29 out of 350 licenses to export arms to Israel, stopping, they say,
there's so much about this, particularly, I would suggest
some arms sales did continue. And as we exclusively revealed last week, Israel said it received £408,000 worth of arms from the UK in June, and that was the highest monthly value since these customs records began back in January 2022. And we can now exclusively reveal that those high-value exports are continuing. September here was the second highest month on record, with £316,000 worth of arms from UK firms passing through Israeli customs. We don't know exactly what the items were or who their end user was, but they were listed under a category which includes bombs, missiles, and ammunition, as well as parts for these items. Now, despite...
There you have it, Tony. Bombs, ammunition, missiles. People are going to have to go to jail, aren't they, in the long run? Our whole international order, the rule of law, the so-called universal human rights that we all hold dear, they've been completely upended in the last couple of years.
Guarantees everyone at home food, work. All these rights have been being eroded gradually. A lot of that happened in the UK because of the privatisation of Margaret Thatcher. Another massive amount happened in Britain. So it's not just about international stuff. With the 2008 massive bailouts of the bankrupt banking authority services, of central government services. So the privatisations combined with the destruction of local and central government's ability to actually do anything, this has also diminished our human rights. But I think, when we're looking at the British government supplying weapons to a genocide, well, yes, you're absolutely right about trials. Look at Alfred Rosenberg and I forget his first name, Julius, I think it might be, Streicher, from Nazi Germany. These were the editors of two very important Die Stürmer and another one, Nazi magazines in the 1930s, which these were the and they were both executed. So any media and government that is complicit with what's going on, they are risking their necks by doing this. So I'm not saying that in an admiring way, but why the complicity? We have to have a look at why is the British government being TV and radio today about the atrocities of October the 7th, 2023. I don't see that as atrocity, particularly because there was also atrocities from the Israeli side because of this Hannibal directive. The Israelis were killing Jewish people who were trying to liberate them. They were just killing everybody, whether it's with tanks or helicopters. And this is a specific policy of the Israeli Defense Forces. So, and anyway, the real atrocity, of course, is the 100,000 or so Gazans who've been executed, been murdered, been killed by British weapons, by Israel, in complicity with Britain. Particularly Matt Kennard's done a fantastic job. I think, isn't it? Is it declassified or grey zone? But anyway, exposing the British Royal Air Force that that won the Battle of Britain. It's now, it seems, turned into the Luftwaffe, and it's complicit with the genocide in providing intelligence. We're not getting much of this, are we, through the mainstream press? So why the complicity? Well, I think we have to look at Britain's role in creating the state of Israel in the first place. British were attacked by the Israeli terrorists, by the Zionist terrorists in the 1940s. We did clear that land and take it over in the First World War. Allenby did. The loss of hundreds of thousands of lives. In the First World War, Britain took over Palestine. That's how we had the mandate. And that's how the State of Israel was created in the first place. Britain played a massive role in that. So it's not surprising that other generations of the same establishment people that created Israel might now be weaponizing it to kill millions of Palestinians.
You make a very good point. Of course, this government creeping towards banning opposition to genocide. I mean, it's truly bizarre. Of course, the simplest thing to do would be to deprescribe Palestine action. The police have had enough of arresting disabled pensioners and Quakers and elderly vicars and what have you. But the government's answer is not to deprescribe Palestine action, but instead to ban the protests altogether. Here's one arrestee from the weekend in Trafalgar Square.
What brought you here today?
Anger. Yeah, sheer anger. And last time people were saying, aren't you nervous? I said, no, I'm too angry to be frightened. So anger at what this government is doing and what this government is not doing. The flotilla, people have been kidnapped off the flotilla, British people in international waters. And what's this government doing? They should at least have evicted the Israeli ambassador. I've said more than once that this is actually a role that we old people should be taking. We have nothing to lose. The young people that are protesting are so brave. I mean, I just cannot imagine how brave they're being because they're putting their jobs on the line and everything. We have nothing to lose. We're retired. We get a pension. They can't stop our pension just because we're protesting. So I feel really pleased that we are fit enough and able enough to actually do this, and our job is to protect the young people.
You're on bail right now.
We were arrested the last one in Parliament Square. We wanted to be arrested at the first one. We stopped right in front of where the police were lining up to arrest people, but they kept ignoring us. They made eye contact and they kept going. I'm sure they didn't know how to deal with these chairs. So the second time, they had a minibus with a tail lift to take us away.
If I were, yeah, fair enough. You'd have to carry it. Fair enough.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, the police claim they're only enforcing the law, but as the dramatist George Chapman observed first in 1654, if that is the law, then the law is an ass, Tony.
Well, this is indicative of the absurdity of the British government's policy. The absurdity really comes through fascism, I think. You know, this that we by the people, because the people wanted Jeremy Corbyn back in 2017. There was a massive campaign, has been revealed in this upcoming book, Fraud, but in other ways too, mainly by the Israel lobby, Israeli money, Israel-funded people to remove Corbyn and install Starmer as the Prime Minister. Now, in any normal functioning country, your security service should be dealing with these foreign interests, taking over British political parties and installing their people. So that would be MI5 in this case, but obviously they're asleep at the wheel. They're in fact probably complicit with what's going on. And so that's why I say fascist. The other reason I say fascist is because of the influence of the World Economic Forum, which Larry Fink, the boss of BlackRock, has now taken a major role in. So Starmer will read any script that's put in front of him. I think the real controllers of the British government and the country right now, and the purse strings, the Treasury, and all these policies, are not people like Rachel Reeves or Keir Starmer. They are people like Tony Blair, Peter Mandelson, Jonathan Powell, Morgan McSweeney, all these unelected people. In fact, of course, Blair and Mandelson have both been de-elected. The people threw them out, and yet it seems they're now right in charge. So that's what bothers me about all of this, is the complete lack of democracy that's involved in it all. And it's our job as journalists to identify the criminals, the war criminals. These people are all war criminals. At least they can certainly be accused of being. Sure, they should go on trial, but it's pretty obvious they're complicit with mass murder and genocide, wiping out of an entire people. And this, it seems to me, is a provocation. The idea is they're not doing this for oil or land. They're doing it because of the massive political effect it's going to have around the world, and they want to create chaos. And they are so embedded, that is the Israel lobby, in so many countries at such a high level through instruments like Freemasonry, etc., that they know that in that chaos they can take over. So it's a bit like Naomi Klein's shock doctrine, order from chaos. Actually, she calls it disaster capitalism. That's what I call it. Ordo ab chaos, by the way, the Latin, is the motto of Scottish Rite Freemasonry.
We'll keep going. I think Tony will be able to rejoin us in a second. I'm particularly enjoying what he was talking about there. Hopefully, we will be able to unbuffer him. In the meantime, I'm going to play another brief excerpt from the Global Flotilla survivors, shall we say. This particular individual was one of the Dutch contingent, and he spoke after his release yesterday.
Everyone, they are not giving any medical support to the prisoners there. The people has been kidnapped from international water, and Israel is mistreating everyone, but especially the people with Arabic or Muslim background. Me, myself, I'm from Palestinian origin. I was mistreated the first day. I was almost like I couldn't breathe anymore because they got something on my face and they tied my hand to the back. And when we were there in the cells, Israel was mistreating everyone with Tunisian or Malaysian or any other Muslim or Arabic country, and they were taken away, and because they have no embassies, they were not getting support. So here I'm making a call to everyone to distribute peacefully every Zionist entity, embassy in the world, because if our people, if our comrades and brothers and sisters don't get good treatment there and be deported as soon as possible, the Zionist entity should not operate in any country over the world. So take action to protect the people with weak passports. It's the time that the whole world moves. The Zionist entity is a terrorist state, and they are trying to intimidate everyone they can intimidate. So we have not to let these people down. They don't have embassies there. They are being mistreated. In my cell, the Zionist guards did take one of our Tunisian comrades, and we didn't know until now where he is or what's happening to him. So it's up to us now to save him before the Zionist entity kill him. We don't exclude the chance that they will kill anyone from the flotilla participant, and we have to protect them with everything. We saw that they are not giving water, they are not giving emergency or medication to the people. They are trying to intimidate us all. So we have to protect the people with weak passports. So please take action as soon as possible so we can avoid that any of our comrades is being mistreated or killed or any way of harm is done to them. My name is Mal Kotesh. I'm Palestinian with Dutch passport.
Solo aclarar que estamos así vestidos también porque desde que fuimos.
There you go. Keir Starmer has said that anti-genocide protests are somehow un-British. Well, what's un-British is Starmer himself. Total imposter, if you ask me. The sooner he goes, the better. Now, I want to leave today on an optimistic note. I came across this little piece of music last night. And my goodness, it's from 55 years ago when the world still had a great deal more hope, let's say. Genocide hadn't been normalized, and young people, as they are today, wanted to see a better world. It's by a band called Rare Bird, and the title of this track is something sadly missing from society today: sympathy.
Into your bed tonight, and when you lock and bolt the door, just think of those out in the cold and dark, 'cause there's not enough love to go round. And sympathy is what we need, my friend. And sympathy is what we need. And sympathy is what we need, my friend. 'Cause there's not enough love to go round. No, there's not enough love to go round. Now half the world hates the other half. Half the world has all the food, and half the world lies down and quietly starves, 'cause there's not enough love to go round. And sympathy is what we need, my friend. And sympathy is what we need. And sympathy is what we need, my friend. 'Cause there's not enough love to go round. No, there's not enough love to go round.
I'm sure you'll agree that that track is particularly apt for today's world, recorded as it was 55 years ago. There's not enough love to go round, and what we need now is sympathy. Well, I've got 1 minute more, Tony, if you want to just chip in quickly with a parting message.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened there, completely zapped, but look, the long and short of it is the attempt by Israel, Britain, and the United States to create this conflagration in the Middle East is deliberate, and I think it's been planned over at least 150 years. This Freemason Albert Pike from the 1870s, who was talking about creating 3 world wars. And this certainly seems to be an attempt to create a 3rd world war. So the point really, what Netanyahu's doing there isn't anything sort of about resources. This is about the world's hearts and minds. He's creating chaos. He's the king of chaos. And at some point in the future, that chaos will be solved by the people like Tucker Carlson and this battle going on really between the people who follow Christian philosophy and the Luciferians and the followers of Aleister Crowley. So that's what I think they're really trying to do. I hope that sums it up well enough for you.
It does, Tony.
Basil?
Unfortunately, your connection has meant that we've had your contribution in fits and starts today, but I hope you can join me.
You know what happened?
Yeah.
Sorry, it just went, and I had to start boot everything up from scratch.
These things happen, but I've got to end now. I do hope you've enjoyed the program. I'm back again at the same time tomorrow. I'm going to be having a look at are we on the brink of World War III with Russia? Is Trump going to sign off on the Tomahawk missiles and let Ukraine use them to strike deep into the heart of Vladimir Putin territory? So that's on the agenda tomorrow. Until then, have a great day, and I'll see you all again very, very soon.